Welcome to the Horror Vault channel. We bring you the most unbelievable stories that will leave you wide-eyed wanting more. Subscribe now and hit the like button to join in the fun. But remember, once you've signed up, there's no turning back.
I was about 6 years old when I first encountered red lights. Although my memories of that age are hazy, the intensity of my emotions when I saw those lights has left an indelible mark in my mind. One night, I abruptly woke up with a desperate need to relieve myself. As I squatted on the bed, preparing to make my way to the bathroom, I caught sight of two ominous red lights piercing through the darkness of the nursery. The room was engulfed in such darkness that I couldn't discern any specific details, but I immediately sensed the presence of a monstrous entity beside me, with those red lights serving as its eyes. Overwhelmed by fear, I couldn't even muster a scream. Instead, I instinctively sought refuge under the covers, trembling uncontrollably for what felt like an eternity until I eventually lost consciousness. I know what you're thinking, that it was all just a half-dream and a childish fantasy. But I vividly remember what happened the next morning. The living room was in disarray. Someone had overturned all the chairs, poured water over the brand new color TV, and tossed the remote control out of the window. They had also toppled the icon in the hallway and painted a mocking mustache and goatee on it. I confided in my parents about the red lights haunting my room. They listened attentively, but as a naive young child, I remained oblivious to their thoughts and opinions. The haunting presence of the monster resurfaced when I reached the age of 14, like a recurring childhood nightmare. Once again, the darkness of the night surrounded me as I awoke with an urgent need to go to the bathroom, only to find those red, wrathful eyes staring at me from up close. They seemed even brighter than before. However, this time, with the advantage of age, I reacted differently. Despite the instant cold sweat that covered me, I swiftly made my way to the light switch, flicking it on and scouring the room with wide, panicked eyes. There was no sign of anyone. Determined to ease my growing unease, I meticulously searched through every room, including my parents' bedroom and my little brother's room, but silence enveloped the entire house. Returning to bed, I left the comforting glow of the light on, hoping it would chase away the haunting images of my childhood. Yet, those memories persisted, lingering in my mind and keeping me awake. The next morning, to my dismay, my brother was nowhere to be found. There were no open windows, no ajar doors. Our apartment was situated on the 6th floor, leaving no plausible explanation for his disappearance. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. In response to the mysterious situation, the police arrived at our home. Detectives meticulously questioned us, and I recounted my sighting to them, detailing the events exactly as they had unfolded. One of the detectives maintained a composed demeanor, attentively listening and asking a few clarifying questions. However, it was evident that they harbored skepticism. They seemed to attribute my recollection to emotional distress, suspecting that I had concocted the story. Johnny was never found. This time, my parents believed me. We decided to leave that cursed apartment behind and relocated to the other side of town, far away from the haunting memories. The year following my brother's disappearance was a nightmarish period, but gradually, my parents and I managed to recover from the devastating blow and slowly return to a semblance of a normal life. I completed my schooling, enrolled in university, found a girlfriend, and even secured a night job. However, I could never shake off the memory of those haunting red lights. I still lived in fear of their unknown owner, dreading the possibility that sooner or later they would find our new home. One winter Saturday night, when I was 22 years old, the haunting red lights returned. My girlfriend had spent the night, and we had both enjoyed a few beers before going to bed. Waking up with a dry mouth, I carefully got up and ventured out into the hallway. A jolt of fear almost escaped as I laid eyes on the red lights, moving ominously in the darkness of the corridor. They burned even brighter than before, resembling two blazing fires. The monster had found its way back into our apartment. It had tracked us down. In that moment, I couldn't afford to take any chances. I swiftly woke up Linda, urgently informing her that she needed to return home immediately. I called a taxi, guided the bewildered girl into the car, and ensured her safe departure. Then, I returned to the apartment and awakened my parents, recounting the harrowing events that had unfolded. We gathered in the kitchen, consumed by fear, and spent the entire night drinking tea and too terrified to venture elsewhere. Only as dawn broke on the following Sunday, relieved that nobody had pressing obligations, did we disperse to our respective bedrooms. I awoke well past midday, only to find an eerie stillness enveloping the apartment. The usual sounds of activity were absent. Having dinner alone with yesterday's soup, I grew increasingly concerned, as my parents had yet to rise from their slumber. Filled with worry, I ventured into their room to investigate. There was no father or mother in the bedroom. They were gone. They went after Johnny. The red lights took them. I didn't call the police. I knew they wouldn't find them. Besides, it would only make things worse, because they would suspect me. I sat at the table, drank the whiskey I had bought from a kiosk, and cried uncontrollably, not knowing what to do. And then, I blacked out. When I woke up, it was almost midnight. The apartment was shrouded in darkness, making it impossible to see. Stumbling down the corridor, I saw the red lights again. But this time they didn't frighten me, they enraged me. I begged the flames, my voice filled with a mixture of desperation and anger.
Bring back my parents! Bring back my little brother! Make everything the way it was!
As I approached, drawn to the possessor of those bloodshot eyes, I accidentally collided with a large mirror, the impact sending a jolt of pain through my forehead. In front of me, the red lights remained suspended in midair, emitting an unsettling glow. Memories flickered in my mind. Of course. In my old flat there was a large mirror in my bedroom, and when I woke up, I could always see my reflection in it. In the new flat there was no mirror in the bedroom, it hung in the hallway instead. When I was 6 years old, on an evening when I wanted to watch cartoons on the television, my father had a different idea. He claimed my chair and the remote and sat down to watch action films instead. Feeling a mixture of anger and deep hurt, I retreated to bed. That night, the TV, chair, and remote all suffered the consequences of my frustration. At the tender age of 6, I couldn't really identify the culprits behind my suffering. When I was 14, during dinner, I playfully slapped Johnny's arm, expecting a harmless joke. To my surprise, he began to cry, as if I had hit him with a stick. In response, my father abruptly slapped me on the back of the head, while my mother stood by his side. I rubbed my head and glanced at my younger brother, before retreating to my room in silence. I strangled Johnny. Then I put the tiny body in my big duffel bag, took the keys, opened the door, went downstairs, and threw my brother and the bag into the raging river not far from our house. Yesterday, I found myself in my parents' room and quietly told them that I wanted to marry Linda. My parents were surprised and worried. They questioned whether Linda, who they believed had a difficult family situation, was the right choice for me. They shared their concerns and, although it was difficult, I listened carefully. However, I reached my breaking point and could no longer take it. I swallowed my anger and returned to my room, where Linda was waiting patiently. I managed a strained smile and took a sip from my beer bottle. In the morning, I went into my father's and mother's bedroom, stabbed them to death, and then moved the bodies into the bathroom. I spent a lot of time taking the bodies out and changing the sheets. But I did my job. I blinked slowly as I stood in front of the mirror, causing the red lights to fade for a moment. But as soon as I opened my eyes again, they flashed with even greater intensity. At that moment, thoughts of Linda consumed my mind. She knew I was in the flat last night. If it hadn't been for her, I would have been able to prove that I had slept elsewhere. There were good friends who wouldn't have betrayed me under any circumstances. But Linda, no, I couldn't have trusted her with something like that. And she was an orphan. She had no close friends. If she disappeared, no one could have linked her disappearance to me. Without moving from the mirror, I took my mobile out of my pocket and dialed the girl's number. Hi, Linda. Listen, why don't I pick you up? Yeah, I know it's a bit late, but my parents are at the country house. We can party all night, just you and me. In the morning, I would forget everything. Just as usual. But the red lights in the mirror were getting bigger. They were smiling at me.